Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff, and welcome to our final episode of Cheap Knife Week, Volume 5. This has been a really interesting season of Cheap Knife Week. We've taken a look at some pretty varied knives, and now in this episode, you get to hear my final conclusions and my thoughts that I've collected while carrying and using these 5 knives. Again, we had some pretty different knives this round. We got a good mix of good, great, and downright garbage. So let's go ahead and get into my thoughts. And later, we're going to be getting into your guys' thoughts because channel members this season got to put their input. That's a weird way to say that. They got to have some input on how these knives are going to be ranked. So we're going to be giving their ranking and then my ranking. And I think it's going to be pretty good. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Just a recap of the knives we took a look at. This is the Mossy Oak Mini Tonto Thumb Holder knife from Tractor Supply. Stupid name. Then we took a look at the Smith & Wesson Big Benji, which is the largest and most expensive knife of the group. I guess I should probably say the prices. $9.99, $24.99. And then we took a look at the Camillus Chiller, which was also $9.99. The SOG, or SOG, my bad, Adventurer LB. This guy came in at $14.99. And then, of course, the legendary Ozark Trail Bug Out Killer at $10. So, pretty good little mix of knives here. We've got a bunch of different sizes, a bunch of different blade shapes. My goal with this series, as always, is to find really, really good knives at not just affordable, but cheap prices. I want to find the best of the best in those, prices that you can get with change that you dug out of your couch cushions, right? And especially with the series where the knives are mostly picked up from brick and mortar stores, in which, in this case, every single one of these knives was bought at an actual store. I did not order any of these online. In fact, these ones all came from Tractor Supply, and then this one, of course, came from Walmart. And I think that's really interesting because these are the kinds of knives that most normal people are going to be buying. Only knife enthusiasts and people that are, down the knife rabbit hole are going to be ordering knives off Blade HQ and stuff like that. Every once in a while someone might order a knife off of Amazon. We've done Amazon knives on this series. But for the most part, if it's just a regular Joe who needs a pocket knife, they're going to be buying it from their local hardware store. They're going to be buying it from Walmart. They're going to be buying it from the feed store, etc., etc. And so I want to see what the available options are for those people and if there's anything that's good. And as you guys will probably know from previous seasons of this series, typically the answer is yes. You can find some legitimately awesome knives that are less than $30 that you can buy in a brick and mortar store. But not all the time. And so let's go ahead and get into these guys. Let's start off with this Mossy Oak knife here. This thing is the worst of the worst, in my opinion. I think I'm going to just come out and say that right now. Not only is the design really weird and funky, this thing's pretty heavy, but mechanically, it's not good either, and the build quality is trash. So the other day, I opened this knife up, just opened it with the thumb stud, and the lock bar immediately sprang to 110%. And now, oh, never mind, there we go. I was about to say I cannot disengage this knife. There, I disengaged it. It's been sitting on my counter like that for weeks. I even brought a little pry bar out here to see if we could disengage it. Holy cow, look at that little divot it left in my thumb. Jeez. Okay, that one looked like a regular lockup. All kinds of blade play. I will say, when it was like completely at 110%, there was no blade play. Okay, it's not locking up that way anymore. Looks like we're locking up normally. Well, normally, I say. with all that blade play. Yeah, this knife I would not say is safe. I don't think this knife is going to hold up to any kind of extended use. And honestly, the only reason you would buy this is because you think the design is cool and you're a teenager. This is the kind of knife that I would have enjoyed as a teenager because it looks so goofy. I would not have carried it because it's not good. But, you know, there it is. No pocket clip, which is a very strange choice in my opinion. But yeah, that one's pretty weird. Moving on to this guy here. This is the one that kind of surprised me in a lot of ways. Smith & Wesson is not known for making great knives, right? But this knife immediately caught my eye because it's got a very unique look. This definitely looks like a knife that was designed. And there is actually a smaller version of this knife that I was trying to get, just called the Benji. I was going to include it in this season of Cheap Knife Week, but by the time I found one in stores, I'd already filled out the roster. So I decided to just leave it out. We might get one in the future and just review it by itself because I actually kind of like a lot about this knife. Access to the lock bar is fantastic. The action's pretty good. But the thing that impressed me the most was this blade. Even though this is a very, very large knife, I mean, gosh dang, that grind is stupid thin. And you have a hollow grind on the primary and secondary edges. This knife does cut extremely well. Now, it's just an 8CR series stainless steel. Nothing amazing, but I was really, really impressed with the cutting performance on this knife. There's a lot of things about this knife that I don't like, though. This thing back here is very sharp, and I kept, when this was in my pocket, you know, that sticking up, and I kept, like, scraping my arm against that. Not a big fan of that. This frame and this liner have a lot of sharp edges that kind of mess up what otherwise would have been some fairly decent neutral ergos. Not a big fan of that. But by and large, I found this to be a very, very interesting knife, and I really enjoyed carrying it just because of how slicey that blade was. Next up, the Camillus Chiller. Interestingly, we have two knives this season that have built-in bottle openers. That's been kind of a trend recently, is knives that have these built-in bottle openers. Everything from the Civivi Quibbit to this thing here. Not like, I don't think it's like a trend or a fad yet. I mean, it's not, you're not seeing it everywhere, but you're seeing it enough times to notice it, if that makes sense. But this is a really cool little knife. I love Camillus. You guys know that Camillus typically does very, very well in this series. This one's a little bit different from Camillus. Most of the Camillus knives are around the $15 mark. This one's a 10. And I can tell that they did take or cut a few corners, right? Number one, this thing is not running on bearings, and I did have to do some tinkering to get the action good. It's running on Teflon washers. The action is fine now, but I did have to tinker with it a little bit. The ergos are very, very nice. I do like this diamond texture on the plastic scales. The blade itself is really awesome. We have kind of this sheep's footy drop point blade, hollow grind, 420 steel. Yeah, this thing cuts pretty well. I do like this one quite a bit. I will say, not my favorite Camillus that we've ever reviewed for this series, but it does do a lot of the Camillus things right, including this pocket clip. Camillus always does fantastic pocket clips. I mean, look at that. That's perfect. Inset to the scales with flat screws. It's wide, doesn't have too much of a bill, disappears in your hand. Only problem is it's not reversible, but absolutely a great pocket clip. Next up, this SOG Adventurer LB. Now, this is only the second SOG I've ever reviewed on the channel, which is a shame. I want to try and review more SOGs, especially since they are now under the same parent company that owns two of my other favorite knife companies. Camillus and Cold Steel and SOG are all under GSM Outdoors. But regardless, this is the second SOG knife that I've ever reviewed. Not the only one I've ever owned. In fact, I might have to pull, I think it's in storage actually at my parents' place or something. I had an SOG knife when I was a teenager that I really, really liked. Maybe we'll have to pull that out sometime. But very, very cool little knife. I was actually really, really excited about this one. I love the color. That's what caught my eye. I got it, and the materials are nothing fancy, 5CR blade, but this blade is really, really excellent. Hollow ground drop point, nice and thin, you know, dependable back lock, reversible pocket clip, making this the only fully ambi knife on the list this season, which is a huge, huge point towards this knife. The ergos are very good. This handle is actually very sophisticated. It's got chamfers in all the right places. It's slightly contoured. Honestly, this knife feels the most designed, I guess, out of all of these. Like, it feels like someone sat down and like, okay, I want to design a great lightweight EDC knife. And they tried their best to do it, and they just so happened to decide to make it at a very attainable price point. I really, really enjoyed carrying this knife. Now, I don't think this backlock is the most robust backlock out there, but I'm not sure this is the kind of knife that I would necessarily expect to be the most robust. So, you know, maybe it doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, very, very simple but well done little knife. I was very, very impressed with that guy. And last of all, this guy. This one's been kind of controversial. You know, there's people that are screaming, oh, it's the best knife ever. Oh my goodness, the Ozark Trail Bug Out Killer. Ah. There's other people saying, oh my goodness, it's terrible, it's trash, no one should like this thing. And I'm kind of in the middle. For a $10 knife, this thing is incredible. I'm not going to lie, for 10 bucks, this is awesome. D2 steel, which really, really outstrips all the rest of these guys in terms of performance. That is fantastic. Axis lock and the action is really, really nice. Do I think that these Omega Springs will last indefinitely? No. Now, I am someone who's never broken an Omega Spring in any of my crossbar lock knives. However, if I was going to break an Omega Spring, I bet it would be with this knife here. Just based on the tension there, it feels kind of light. I don't really like the way that feels, but $10, right? $10. Ergos are really good. We've got contoured scales. The pocket clip is fine, nothing amazing. They could have done it a lot better, especially by making it reversible. But this knife is a completely fine knife. And the thing that makes it incredible is the price. 10 bucks is nothing to shake a stick at. It is incredible that this kind of knife can be had for 10 bucks nowadays, and I do not want to take that away from this knife at all. Is this the greatest knife ever? No, absolutely not. Of course not. But for 10 bucks, you could do a lot worse. You could do a whole lot worse. Hey guys, I'm going to interrupt the video briefly to share with you a comment that I found to be pretty hilarious and also pertinent to this video topic. This was left on a recent community post by a viewer, not a member, but a longtime viewer called Jimbus Maximus. He says, quote, "The only thing that smells better than new motor oil is brand new cheap knife fresh out of the blister pack. If cheap knife smell were a scented candle, I'd burn it." I thought that was a hilarious comment and wanted to share it here. And I'm also going to take a little bit of time to do some shilling for myself because YouTube tells me I don't do that enough. If you want to keep up with what's going on the channel and find all kinds of my content that you might have missed in the past, go ahead and check out my community page. I make posts out there with polls, and I also sometimes will advertise old videos of mine that I think are worth watching. And if you want to find all of my videos, if you wonder, oh, has Gideon ever taken a look at XYZ knife, go to my playlists, and I've got them all organized by brand and topic. Find what you want, and you can watch the videos that I have in that playlist. So if you ever get to where you're jonesing for some Gideon Stuff content, I've got over 1,000 videos that you can go and search through and hopefully find something that you like. Don't go too far back, though, because, oh my goodness, you don't want to find the early days of cringe Gideon. I'm just kidding. Go back as far as you want. And I'm also going to do a little bit of shilling for channel memberships now. If you want to become a channel member and get access to exclusive perks, I do a lot of stuff over there with memberships. We do giveaways, and that's for everyone at every level. If you join at the cheapest level, you get access to certain videos, every once in a while. You also get emojis and you get the little icon by your name in the comment section. If you join at the cowboy level, which is the most popular level, you get early access to all videos. I do like posts and stuff for cowboy members only and all kinds of other cool stuff. So yeah, you can check that out if you're interested. All right, now that we've got all that out of the way, let's go ahead and rank these knives from worst to best. And we're going to start off with our membership rankings. So channel members had access to some polls where they could vote on what they thought the best and worst of the knives were. And so let's start off with last place. We actually have a tie. The membership voting was a complete tie, 50-50 between the Mossy Oak and the Smith & Wesson. So we'll put those there like that, which kind of surprised me that there was a tie, but I guess it didn't really surprise me that much. And you guys will see why when we get to my ranking, but there's those two. Next up, whoops, I just clicked away from the polls, my bad. And for second worst, of course, I should have seen this coming. We were also tied 50-50 between these two. So we'll just have these ones tied at I guess fourth place. So there we go. Okay, awesome. Third place, we've got another tie between the Camillus Chiller and the SOG Adventurer LB. And for second place, we actually have 67% for the Adventurer LB, so we're going to move him up there. And then 33% for the Ozark Trail. And for our best knife, we actually have the same split. 67% for the SOG and 33% for the Ozark Trail. I'm assuming that maybe someone accidentally voted for something that they didn't mean. But I guess that means that we'll have to put these guys as tied. So this is what the membership ranking came out to be. And honestly, I don't have a whole lot of issue with that. But now we're going to get on to my ranking. And we're going to arrange these. I'm not going to have any ties. We're going to go worst to best on my ranking. So let's go ahead and get started. I think that the worst knife is absolutely the Mossy Oak. Yeah, it's only a $10 knife, but I think objectively this is the worst knife. This one has the shoddiest build quality. The action is only the way it is because I had to mess with it and finagle it. No pocket clip, slippery ergos. The blade did not perform that well. I think objectively this is the worst knife. And it's also unsafe. And an unsafe knife is automatically a terrible knife, in my opinion. So that guy is going dead last. That's garbage. Poo-poo town. Yuck. Next, fourth place. I gotta be honest, I was conflicted on this. And it was choosing between these two knives. So yeah, here's what it comes down to. This knife here works like a knife now. Like the action works, the thumb studs, work. All that. It's got a good blade. I love the clip. The ergos are nice. But in order to fix the action, I did have to tinker with it. Out of the box, the action was trash. This knife had a decent action out of the box, and I do prefer the blade on this. Guys, I'm not kidding. This thing is a heck of a cutter. And so it was kind of a wash between these two for me. But what I eventually decided to do is put this guy at fourth place. And the reason I'm putting the Smith & Wesson at fourth place is because of, number one, stop falling over you. Number one, the ergos are not great. It does have a lot of sharp edges. I don't like that, especially on a big knife like this that you want to be bearing down on for some powerful cuts. Unacceptable to have those sharp edges. But the other thing, the main thing that's keeping this lower on the list is the price. This is the most expensive knife. $24.99, sometimes even up to like $29.95 I've seen on Amazon, I think. This guy is more than double the price of some of the other knives in this list. And so when you're getting that expensive, I mean, the ceiling that we put on Cheap Knife Week is $30. This guy's approaching that ceiling, and if you're going to be doing that, you've got to be special. You've got to be doing most things right. The ergos, this stupid thing back here, they let this guy down. And also kind of materials too, a little bit, I guess. So Smith & Wesson Big Benji going at 4th place, mostly because of that price. And 3rd place, as you probably guessed, it's going to be the Camillus Chiller. I think 3rd place is a great spot for this knife. This is a cool little EDC knife. The ergos are good. This blade is going to cut really well. The 420's a great steal for $10. Hollow grind. And for a $10 knife, this is really, really good. I mean, compare this $10 knife to this $10 knife, and it's not even a competition. This thing completely kicks this one's ass. But I don't think it's as good as the other 2 knives on this list, mainly because the action was pretty rough out of the box. I had to do a lot of tinkering to fix it up. So this guy is going to be going in 3rd place. Okay, now we get to what was the most difficult part of the ranking for me, is choosing between these 2 knives. This was really hard. I spent a long time thinking about this. I've got pages and pages of notes that I took about these 2 knives, comparing my thoughts on them. Because, these 2 knives, honestly, if you were to kind of like mix them together, I think you'd have the perfect inexpensive knife. The LB does so many things right. The ergos and the blade complement themselves really, really well. This blade has excellent geometry. It is a completely ambidextrous knife with this clip that can be easily flipped over. The handle is really sophisticated. These ergonomics feel really, really good. That's all awesome. However, the clip itself I don't like that much in and out of the pocket, and the materials on this knife are significantly lacking compared to this knife. I mean, they've got basically the same handle, but this is a 5CR blade compared to a D2 blade. Honestly, I would prefer the 420 or the 8CR over this blade here. But again, the geometry on this is just really, really good. The other thing is, I mean, this backlock has a little bit of flex I can get out of it. Not sure how big of a deal that is going to become in the future, but it's something that I noticed. Fin finish otherwise on this knife is very, very good, and I really do like this design. Now, this knife is $5 cheaper. We've got a significant upgrade in the blade steel. We have a very fidgety knife. We've got a larger knife. I typically lean towards larger knives. We've also got great ergos, and this blade and these ergos complement each other very well as well. That was bad alliteration. But even though I prefer the pocket clip on this one to the pocket clip on this one, it's not reversible. That's a major, major point against this knife, because otherwise it would have been completely ambidextrous. Another thing with this knife, though, is I don't really like the tension on this lock. I'm not sure what the longevity on that lock is going to be. Probably not great, right? And, I mean, is this knife a clone? I don't really think this is a clone or a copy of the Bitchin' Bug Out, but, you know, some people might say that. So these 2 knives really, really were giving me trouble thinking about where to put them. Again, this one's a little more expensive with lesser materials, but I prefer the design on this knife. I prefer the function of this knife. I do think that this knife will have a longer lifespan than this knife. Even though this backlock is probably not the most robust backlock ever, I do think it's going to last longer than the Omega Springs on this Ozark Trail. Now, I'd have to carry them for a long, long time to figure that out. And through the what did these knives get? 3 weeks of carry that I put these knives through. They held up fine, but I can't see into the future, right? For me, I think I've made up my mind. I think I know where each of these knives is going to go. And people are going to disagree with me. I already know that if I put this knife at first place, there's going to be people that are like, "Oh my goodness, blah 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 blah, you're a shill for Ozark Trail." That is actually something that I heard in comments a while ago, which is really, really weird. They're like, "That knife is trash, that knife's garbage, it's a clone, it's a copy, it's not good. You're just leaning into the hype. That knife's all hype." And then if I put it at second place, there's going to be people saying, "Oh, you just hate Ozark Trail. You just don't like, actual cheap knives," which is ridiculous because I've reviewed quite a few Ozark Trails on this channel. But second place is where this knife is going to go, and here's why. Availability. Ozark Trail very rarely makes the same knife for a long, long time. These are sold out most places, and I don't know if they're coming back. I'm sure Ozark Trail will be releasing something very similar to these in the future, but as it is, I don't know if these are ever going to be around ever again. These are going to be around for a while. You can find these at Walmart and on Knife Center and Tractor Supply, all kinds of places. So if you want one of these, you can find one. They've got all kinds of different colors available. I will say I have noticed that these are a little more expensive at Walmart than Tractor Supply. Tractor Supply, again, had these for $15. Walmart had them for closer to $20. I think it was $19.99. Regardless, it's still a nice knife. I really do enjoy this design. This thing's a heck of a cutter. Do wish that there was an upgrade in the blade steel, though. But there we go. There is my list for Cheap Knife Week, Volume 5. Let me know what you guys think. We do have more Cheap Knife Week coming in the future, so keep an eye out for that. I think this is a really, really great run this season, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Big shout out to my channel members. If you want to become a channel member, you can join at the button down below. Get access to all kinds of exclusive perks. For everyone else, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.